Welcome to the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the volunteers. So we are here to encourage and equip you. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you are asking so you can help the next generation know Jesus.
Everybody, welcome back for another conversation here on the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. I've got Kevin Janzen jumping into this really big question. Everybody knows it because of the show notes and the episode title, Kevin. So I'm excited for, I don't know. I've got a lot of examples. I've been through this. I think you've been through this. I think people have got ideas already. So this is going to be really fun. Before we get to it though, why don't you fill people in? Hey, where are you coming from today? What kind of ministry context have you worked in? I think that'll be helpful as we jump in.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to have this conversation. Yeah. So I'm coming to you from Edmonton, sunny Edmonton today. And I've been in youth ministry for almost 20 years, spanning the Western provinces. And right now I get to serve young pastors. So I'm kind of our over our province and our territory, Alberta Northwest Territories. I get to serve all of our young pastors. And I actually serve as a volunteer preteen leader for my daughter's preteen ministry. So it actually comes full circle. I've been in youth ministry and now I'm serving as a volunteer. And our preteen leader, Cam, he's the best. Cam, if you're listening, love you, man. And any examples are not an indictment of you. We love you, Cam. All right. So that's just to clear that up.
Okay, this is great. So right now you got these dual roles. So you are a denominational leader.
Yeah.
And what can we say? What denomination is that secret?
Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. Yeah, love our Pentecostal family.
Absolutely. Okay, I love that. And so when you like coach, is that the idea? Like you kind of coach and support youth workers, youth pastors, ministries across those provinces. That's amazing. And then a volunteer in junior high. So what age group is in your small group?
Grade 5 boys.
Grade 5 boys. Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And you've been with them for a few months now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not one of their primary leaders. I would be one of the coaches that, because the group is too big, I jump in to help.
Sure.
So yeah, Bill and Nathaniel, they're rocking it with our grade 5 boys, but there's too many, like there's 20 grade 5 boys this last Monday night.
Oh.
And so I'm jumping. Yeah, it's nuts. So I'm jumping in to help where I can. And grade 5, but like they're pretty chaotic. They say a lot of dumb things, but it's a riot. And they're to watch that light bulb moment come on where they get something is pretty fun.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So what do you do if you disagree with leadership? Kevin, what are we saying? Are we saying disagree with leadership of like our youth ministry, disagree with leadership of our whole organization? If we're in a church like senior pastor, what do you mean when we're talking about disagreement with leadership?
Yeah, I think it could be all of that, right? Like sometimes it is a big philosophical youth ministry difference with the overall church. Sometimes it's more the execution of how a youth night goes. Maybe it's how the front end welcome team is engaging. Sometimes it's even. I remember as a junior high pastor, our grade 9 boys were struggling. They didn't like the format of the night. And so we walk through some of those things, and I'll be able to fill in the gap of that example later on too. But yeah, it really does scan from a youth pastor having an issue with church leadership to a volunteer leader having trouble reconciling alignment with their youth leader as well.
Yeah. And this has come in as a question from a youth worker. And to be honest, I don't actually know if they had a specific example. So if this was your question, feel free to write back in if you want to tweak the angle that we're tackling this on. But I love what you said. Like honestly, this can come in any kind of shape or form in terms of disagreement with the leadership that we think is above us. And if I could just insert this, the way I'm excited about this, because I've been in a number of different seats in a church ministry in particular. So I've sat as a church janitor. I worked as a church janitor, and I had disagreements with the people that, were running ministries. I've been a ministry leader. I've been a volunteer. I've been associate pastor, and I've sat on a church board. And so in each of these seats, oftentimes it can feel like, gosh, there's these parts of our ministry that I disagree with or I get frustrated with, and knowing how to communicate that or what to do with that is an important question. Because I think for lots of people, this is like they've got the examples, and it's maybe as simple as like they don't, like you said, they don't like how the chairs are set up or how the game's being run or what kind of pizza's being ordered. But it can also be theological. It can be intense. It can be really vision oriented. Are we going places as an organization or ministry that I actually agree with or disagree with? So this is big, Kevin. Do you have personal examples?
Well, I was going to say it's also relevant no matter where we are in life, because often we're not in charge, right? We might be in charge of something, but every aspect of life, there's something that we need to submit to, and there's leadership that we might not always be misaligned. So to me, this question goes well beyond youth ministry. Although we're gonna tackle the youth ministry specifics, but all through your life, volunteer youth leader, you will encounter these principles, and I think that the things that we're going to talk about today can be applied whether you're a McDonald's worker or you're working your way up in sales or a nurse or whatever, right?
Yeah. And if I can insert maybe just an element of hopelessness early in the conversation, is I sometimes wondered early on if I could just get it a little bit more authority or power, that then I wouldn't have to worry about this question. And the truth is that was a futile thought, because even as you gain extra responsibility or you seemingly move up in an organization, it doesn't change the fact that you still deal with disagreement on a routine basis. And usually it actually gets more intense the more authority or the more ability you feel like you might have to make these changes. And yet you still end up having to sort through this. So in light of that, whether it's the pizza or the theological direction of the church, what do you do when you disagree with leadership, Kevin?
Okay, so I want to start with humility. I think that posture of humility removes a lot of potential error. I think that we want to give our leaders the benefit of the doubt. We want to remember that there's a piece to the puzzle that you might not have, that you might be missing something. We want to give the benefit of the doubt that our leaders are praying about the direction that they're taking us, that they're wise and that they're studied. And so I think starting with a position of humility in that posture, I think is primary. Like we got to lead from that spot.
Okay, so starting with humility. So asking yourself the question, I wonder if there's something I don't know about the situation. Do you have any examples of that? Like on a grand scale or on a smaller scale, has that ever been shocking when you realized, oh, this is actually a bit more complicated than I realized? Yeah.
Well, so the example with my grade 9 boys, I was on the other end. I was the leader. And so I was able to personally lead from humility, but they also were curious. I think curiosity is that's one of the valuable traits that we see in leadership. And so they were willing to hear me out and understand the philosophy of why we're doing it. And then they understood better. But I also changed the way we did our format because of their posture of like being willing to explain it out. And I'm probably jumping ahead here, but just that idea of being open-handed and not just dug in, that we have the whole picture or have the whole answer.
Yeah, I remember being a staff pastor and being very frustrated one budget season that budgets were being, doled out in a way that I just felt wasn't fair or whatnot. And for whatever reason, feeling like, oh yeah, this like, I wonder if there's something I don't know, and trying to be a little bit humble about it. Realized after asking some questions like, oh, it's actually much more complex than just, I didn't get all the money that I'd hoped for my youth ministry. It wasn't like there was people angry and upset at my leadership. It was just that there was so much at stake and at play as they were deciding how to allocate resources. And it was fascinating, instead of coming guns a-blazing, just being willing to ask some questions, sometimes what you can learn with that. So I can appreciate that. Okay. So number one, I'm hearing you say we should lead with humility. We should wonder if there's something maybe we don't know. So when you disagree with leadership, let's start with that kind of posture. I appreciate that. What else would you say to a volunteer or to a point leader that's struggling with the leadership above them?
Yeah, it might sound cliche, but we got to pray for our leaders, right? Like at the risk.
We have to talk about praying for them, or do you mean we actually have to take moments to pray for them?
hey, if it starts with talking about praying, let's start. No, but yeah, like we actually have to pray for our leaders and like really commit them to the Lord. The thing is, prayer changes me, but it also changes the people that I'm challenged by, right?
Yeah.
And so when we are really submitting them to the Lord and then trusting that our own posture and heart can shift toward back to humility and back to like this place of curiosity and wanting what's best for them, wanting what's best for our students, wanting what's best for the ministry, right? Like prayer changes those things. And so then I think that if we start with those couple things, we're going to be set up for the rest really well.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy. Like I joke about talking about praying because I think we actually talk about it quite a bit, but we have to check our hearts and actually ask ourselves the question, hey, have I actually taken some time? Like, was it just like a passing 10-second prayer, or like, am I actually spending time in prayer for this person? Knowing that especially sometimes we might be thinking some significant kinds of things, to be honest, our own pushback or challenges or the things that we might do around leadership may not be the thing that actually changes their hearts. It is going to require a move of the Spirit even. And I think we've seen some places in church ministry where there's been some very, very difficult things. And obviously our hope and our prayer is that God would move powerfully in people's hearts and minds, and that could actually bring them to health and bring them to the right places. So I love that idea about making sure that we are indeed praying for those people. That I think that's really valuable. Okay. So lead with humility, ask some questions, pray for the person that we disagree with. I think that's wonderful. What else should we be doing?
Okay. So the next thought is test it out. So there might be something that you want to try in your ministry that's not necessarily like you're not defying leadership. You're not going against the philosophy of the ministry, but it's just not being done yet. And you need data to back up your ideas. And so an example for this, Jer, I'm as a preteen leader here at our church. I think that we could do the engagement at the first 5 minutes a little bit better. And so I just took it upon myself to be the high five team on the way in the doors on Monday night. And so I'm high fiving parents, I'm high fiving students, and I'm just wanting to make sure that engagement piece is really strong in the first 5-10 minutes. And so this isn't something that I had to go to Cam and say, hey Cam, I think that we should be better at greeting people. I think we should start a high five team. I don't need to start that until I model the importance of it. And maybe some of the other leaders will see, hey, that's cool. I love how we're engaging students right off the bat. I'm going to join. Or in the next couple of weeks, I can say, hey, Cam, I was just trying this out. And it seemed to work. Like parents seemed to like really value the engagement right off the hop. Students felt welcome. So then I can go in with, hey, this has been tested. I've got data to back it up, even if it's just kind of like my own sense of it. But then at least something like that, let's try. Another thing, our small groups tend to be too big. And so one thing that I tried in our grade 5 group on Monday is to split off into smaller groups rather than trying to tackle all 20 of those boys at once. Let's the 3 co-leaders, let's each take a smaller group. Well, it did help with conversation. And so that's another thing that I can come back to Cam and say, hey, we've tested this out and it seemed to work. I'd love to hear what other groups are doing, maybe all 20 together. So we've tried something out, and then we can go with a little bit of data backing us up and not just our own quote unquote wisdom.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. So where applicable, like there are some disagreements that we might have that aren't going to be like there's not necessarily a test to them, but where applicable, if you can test out an idea or a theory, hey, I think if we got, gluten-free pizza, people would appreciate that. So maybe you take a shot and you get gluten-free pizza on your own and see like, oh yeah, look, like all these students, like that was really valuable for them. Do something that is, the thing that you're wondering about, hey, we need more volunteers. Well, if you can, why don't you recruit somebody and see if you can involve somebody else and just show what that looks like for your ministry and the impact that might have. And it might change the person that you're working with to realize, oh yeah, that could be valuable if they spent some time in kind of that recruiting zone. Go ahead.
If there's something that like you say might be too big to test it out, or it's a bigger philosophical thing, make sure you're studied up, make sure that you're read up on it, do some research. Like even talk to a couple experts without gossiping, without like tearing anyone down, but like do your due diligence to make sure that your ideas are well-rounded and well-founded, and not just pie in the sky philosophical little differences.
Yeah. So that's where I wonder about, like, maybe your ministry, it's something about the way that you do, I'm trying to think of it, like, the doing communion. I was part of a ministry, and it was like, when I got there and the leader I was working with, it was like, there was a specific way we did communion. You can't do it any other way. So anytime whoever's doing communion, it's got to be this specific way that we do it. And so maybe the testing it out isn't that you jump ahead and actually run communion differently than that, but just like, hey, I was talking to some other church leaders, or, I was talking to another youth, volunteer that I know from this other place. And it seemed like, hey, if they were able to do it in this kind of way, they allowed students to take communion in this kind, like, it would just made it more accessible. And the response seemed really good. If you come with that kind of information, it's not just your idea, but like you said, you've got some data, some information, some other ideas that might make that person think, recognizing that, again, it's not just a pushback on their idea, but that you're actually seeing it work. And I would maybe add too, if you can know if the thing that you're disagreeing with, or the thing that you're challenging, if you can get to the heart of what the core goal, like this shared goal that we're all thinking on, that's going to be really helpful in this stage. So if hey, the reason that, this person, even though we disagree about the method, the reason that this person does this particular thing is because they care deeply for the faith of students, or they care deeply for, the next generation, or whatever the thing is. And so let's tap into that kind of shared agreement. Hey, we're all aligned on this thing. It's just maybe that we're not seeing it work out in the same way, in the actual practical outpouring.
You're talking about getting to the why.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's the overarching why behind what we're doing, right? Like, so for me, for our Greek time, we want students to feel engaged and loved right off the hop. For our small groups, we don't want chaos. We want students to engage with what God wants to speak to them, right? Like, we want them to walk away with learning something, not just having a chaotic conversation about Power Rangers, right? Like, anyway, get to the why. That's good. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So lead with some humility. Pray for the person that you're disagreeing with. See if you can test some things out. That's great. Have conversations and that sort of stuff. What else are we doing when we disagree with leadership, Kevin?
I think the next step is to, like, sit down for coffee, take him for lunch. And so, like, me and Cam, we meet all the time. Dude, like, he is so teachable and hungry to grow as a youth leader. And so I love that we get to chat. And so, but it's also making sure that Cam knows that I care about him. Mm-hmm. I care about the students, and I care about the ministry, mm-hmm. right? If those three things are without a doubt, then he's going to be much more willing to hear what I have to say, even if it's a hard truth, even if it's something that he didn't maybe even do well. But if it's something philosophical, if I lead with caring about him, caring about the students, and caring about the ministry, then we can go back and forth, and he can explain, oh, yeah, that's actually a good insight, but this is why we do it, what we do. And I can be like, oh man, I didn't see that, right? That even comes back to our previous, where we're leading with humility, wondering if maybe we're missing something, right? Then we can check those things. Maybe I'm but meeting mitigates the gossip, right? Like, till this point, none of our points have anything to do with talking to anyone else, right? Mm-hmm. We're not throwing anyone under the bus. We're not throwing any leadership. Like we don't want to lead with gossip. We want to chat it out face to face and say, hey, what do you think? Here's my data. Here's kind of my ideas. What do you think could work? Here's the why that I feel like we could get to a little bit more effectively, and see how that conversation goes. But when we're not afraid of those candid conversations, I think that our leadership grows, our communications strengthens, and we're better equipped for future conversations like that, as we go forward.
Yeah. Okay. What happens though, Kevin? You meet with the person, and so obviously the win is if there's some alignment there. So let me use maybe a little bit more of a heated example, because I'm starting to think about disagreements that might actually be more intense than just the granular, hey, let's this program element or this pizza. I'm starting to think about What about like, hey, leader, like, I don't think it's valuable how you call people out from the platform in the way that you do, or force people to open up about their deepest, darkest sin in a public way, like this is kind of weird. And so, and then there's even more obviously intense, like maybe they're taking actions that almost are kind of shady. And so when you start disagreeing and you end up in that conversation, you say, let's use like, part of their response in the communication is that they call students out that they saw on social media post inappropriate videos or something like that. So it's like that's their teaching. They're like, hey, Johnny, you shared this TikTok and it was bad and like you're sinful. So you're like, I don't think this is doing what you want it to do. And you're bringing that information right to this person. And you're like, hey, I've kind of thought about this. I prayed for you. Like, I think there's a better way. And then you bring it to that person and they're like, they're not hearing it. Like their heart's hardened and they think they've got the answer. And you're still like, gosh, I think this is actually potentially dangerous or even just really inappropriate. What do you do with that after meeting one-on-one with that leader?
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's big. Scripture gives us an example. I think it's I want to say Matthew 17 or 19. You probably have a sharper knowledge on that. Am I close there?
So are you when like bring it to a brother and then involve somebody else? Yeah. So church disagreements, and like what's the principle there? Is that meant to be in Matthew? I think it's 18 actually.
I was right in between, eh?
As I Google it, to be honest and fair. But yeah, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you and you've gained your brother, if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that may charge be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. So like there's this sense on, and then if he refuses, like it goes on. Is there a sense of like, hey, if you've disagreed and you feel like it's actually dangerous or very inappropriate, yeah, how do you escalate it just using this model from Matthew?
I think that's the best idea that I like, because you do want to honor and give the benefit of the doubt, but you also care mostly about the safety of your students, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over the ego of the leader. And so if it means bringing in their direct report, so if they report to the family ministries pastor or the lead pastor, but that is a challenge because the last thing you want to do is harm someone, but the safety of the students is most important. So if you can take that posture in a way that doesn't gossip or lead with harm, if you can lead with curiosity and humility and be prayed up about it, then it would be to take it to maybe there's an intermediate, like some youth ministries they'll have the point person. Then they'll have a coach that you report to. So maybe it would be talking to your coach and getting advice on, okay, like what do I do in this situation? Because I need to be careful and make sure that my heart's right. But I also, there is something it's not just negligible. It's not just a little thing. It is something where a student's dignity or safety is in question. Then it's something to figure out that Matthew 18 model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously, there's other leaders farther up, so you can even go, like you said, to a senior leader, potentially a board. There's denominational authority that you can involve. I mean, obviously, if it's dangerous, the police at some point would need to be involved, as you can escalate it as far as that goes. But yeah, not to sit on something that is as potentially detrimental to the health and safety of people. That's really valuable. But let's bring it back down. Is there you meet with that leader, and if it's not something that's that intense and you're having the conversation, what do you do next with that disagreement?
Yeah, you got to figure out what's next. Like sometimes maybe they hear you out and you're like, okay, satisfied with the response, and you're like, okay, I'm all in. I'm following you, and I'm going to submit to leadership, and I'm going to go for it. Sometimes there might be a misalignment where they don't hear you, and then you get to weigh out, okay, is this misalignment just a reflection of two people that are uniquely gifted differently, and we're just seeing things differently, but I can still align with them and follow them, even with a little bit of a difference of philosophy. I know at different times in my ministry, I have seen a perceived misalignment as, okay, it must be time to move on. And I may have jumped the gun on that too soon, because in reality, misalignment's going to be normal. We're uniquely created with gifts, and God's created us so different. He's not looking for cookie cutter copies, right? We're all unique. And so that misalignment, or that those differences in philosophies is a reflection of the body of Christ, right? We are all created differently, and there's beauty and synergy in coming together, even with differences in that, and aligning. Now that there's other times where that chasm of alignment is just too great to cross, right? Where man, we've led with humility, we've tried to walk through, we've been praying, we've met, and they're just it's too big, and I might need to find a youth ministry that fits with kind of my leaning and what I'm feeling and praying about. And so that, to me, I hope that's the last resort, Jer. I hope that's not a road that most of our youth leaders take, but we don't want to be naive to the idea that there are times where God will release you and say, okay, it's time for you to find another place to serve.
Yeah. And that's obviously a big question. So if that's something that you're wrestling with personally, just know that we would love to hear from you. We always put contact info in the show notes so that if you'd like to have that conversation, even confidentially, we're definitely open to that, because it's sometimes difficult to know if you're doing the right thing in that setting, but it does mean that it comes up. Okay. So you're going to figure out what's next. And sometimes that means disengaging from the ministry. Sometimes it means doubling down. Sometimes it means, hey, we're going to compromise. We're going to work on things together. Is there anything else that you think about when you think about disagreeing with leadership?
Yeah, overarching, lead with honor, right? I've mentioned this a couple times, but when you decide, hey, I'm not going to gossip about this, I'm going to honor leadership even if I disagree with them. We start with humility, we end with honor, and I think that's a great way to position yourself to serve well, to serve your students well, to serve your ministry well, to serve your pastors well, and that would be kind of overarching. If we honor well, it'll never come back negatively upon us, right? Like if we've led with that posture. I'm just talking to a friend of mine, and when he was serving in youth ministry, he was actually serving in a pretty toxic environment, and he committed himself to serving his lead pastor, even though he wasn't really worthy of it, but he knew that the Lord had put him there to be refined in his own character and to serve really well. And yeah, God did a lot of work more in him than he did in the lead pastor. And eventually it was time to move on, but he committed to honor and committed to serving primarily, and God refined him through that. And so that would be kind of how I'd cap it off, Jeremy.
That's awesome. Well, and we want to make sure, like we obviously said, if there's an issue of safety or health and well-being, this changes a bit of this process. So we want you to be discerning, obviously, of those things. And if you need help with that, again, let us know. We got contact info in the show notes, and we can help you kind of navigate that a little bit. But obviously, disagreements do come up, and this is a part of life and leadership. And so to think through, I love these steps. I think this is really valuable, Kevin. We'll drop them into the show notes as well, so that people can access them in that kind of way. But as we're coming in for a close, is there anything else that you want to say to our volunteer youth workers that are listening, the work that they're doing as they consider ministering to the next generation?
Yeah, you guys are the MVPs, right? Like, you guys are pouring in. You're more than just crowd control. You're mentoring, you're pastoring students, and don't let that concept scare you. Like, just go for it. You do more than you know, and the impact that you make from week to week is way bigger than you understand. So we're praying for you, love you, and love that you're doing what you're doing. So keep going.
That's awesome. Well, appreciate your time today, Kevin. Thanks so much for sharing with everybody. And we'll see you guys all back for another conversation here on the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast.